everybody. Welcome back to the 30 Minutes of Fame podcast. I'm Dave, your host, and today I have another a guest with an inspiring story, a lot similar stories to my own. This is Jason from Montreal. We're not going to talk hockey at all today because that's too upsetting to me. But he's a certified peer support specialist, just recently happened, a recovering addict who's approaching 2 years sober, man. Congratulations and welcome to my show.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, I'm super excited to be here when you messaged me the other day. Yeah, I got super excited and I was looking forward to this because any platform that I get to be able to share my story and be able to share awareness around addiction and mental health and all that stuff is a win for me, and that's really why I started this whole platform. That's kind of how we got in touch, was through X and through me sharing my story. And so yeah, I'm super excited to be on here today, and thanks for having me.
So it's Sunday morning for both of us. We both used to drink quite a bit. What's that like for you now? I think it's my 186 weekend without a hangover. So
Amazing.
waking up on a Sunday morning with a clear mind, how does that feel for you now?
Yeah, it's different for sure. I just got back from the gym this morning, and that's definitely something that I could never have said before that I got back from the gym. It's 11 o'clock where I am right now. On a Sunday morning after, yeah, my Saturday nights look very different today than they used to. And last night was actually a very interesting one for me because, I posted yesterday. I don't know if you saw or not, but I have this feeling about the pressure of what Saturday nights and Friday nights and weekend nights in general are supposed to look like for people, and the way that they looked like for me growing up. And for the longest time, I always had such a big pressure on me that I really put on myself, that I always had to be busy and had to be around people and had to be hanging out with someone and had to be having fun and doing all these things on a Saturday night. And last night, actually, I went to a movie by myself, and it was very different.
Mm.
And it gives me, I had a lot of anxiety yesterday about it because of these notions that the societal pressures that, we're meant to be around people. And, oh, am I a loser? Oh, do I not have any friends? Oh, does no one like me? And I had one of the most beautiful nights that I've had in the longest time last night because I really just felt this freedom to do whatever I want. So you asking the question of how does it feel to wake up sober on a Sunday morning? It's amazing, and it's not just amazing, but it's liberating because I'm no longer a slave to really anything anymore. And of course, there's certain things that I still use as maladaptive coping mechanisms and all this stuff, but it's nothing like the hold that alcohol and drugs had on me.
It's funny, man. There's some nights, like on a Friday night, boy, I used to go out Tuesday to Sundays at karaoke and just get shit-faced. And it was not even like a month ago. I was at they had a kids karaoke at our church. So as kids could get up and sing, and there's a lot of people there, and I just stopped and I look back. I'm like, wow, I'm at a church on a Friday night, drinking tea and coffee, and watching kids do karaoke. And with me and my girlfriend, we go to karaoke oddly enough now, once every few months or something. But we always leave once that flood of overserved people starts happening because I can't stand to be around who I was, and it's such a liberating feeling. Like drunk people just annoy the shit out of me now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I love that you still are able to go to that and still are able to enjoy it, because one of the things that happened when I got sober was I thought that it would take away life from me, right? Like one of my biggest fears in getting sober was, well, how am I supposed to live?
Yeah.
Got sober, and I'm pretty young and I still have a lot of friends that are not problematic drinkers, that don't do drugs the way that I did and still go out on the weekends. And when I first got sober, I had this big fear that I was going to miss out on all this, on hanging out with my friends and having a good time. And that's when I realized I didn't have to. Just
Yeah.
because I don't want to drink, just because I can't drink, it doesn't mean I can't go out and enjoy a night out with my friends. And I like what you said about you leave when the overserved people start happening, because that's exactly the same thing that happened to me. I used to stay out until 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning when I was using, and I still go out today, but I go home at 11 o'clock. And my friends might look at me like and laugh at me and joke with me, but the reality is that's where I get my peace. That's where, I enjoy my nights more when I go to bed at a decent hour than when I go to bed at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock. And, again, to your first point is I get to wake up the next day and enjoy my day and not be bedridden all day and not need, to drink gallons of water because of my pounding headache. I need to take Advil and all those different things. So, um, while my fun might look different today, it doesn't mean that I don't get to have fun.
Hmm.
And it's a big perspective shift that happened for me because I used to think that the only way to have fun was going out and getting obliterated and not remembering my night and being wild and doing things that I was going to regret and basically living in absolute chaos, right? That's what
Well,
fun was for me, and it no longer is.
our paths are so similar, man. But what was your big wake up call when you just said, "Man, I've had enough of this"? Like, did you just stop? That was it?
Yeah, so it was a progressive illness, as I like to call it. I started out as a big partier. I would go out like probably 4 times a week, and every time I'd go out, I'd black out and I'd get more drunk than my friends. And every morning that I'd wake up the next morning, I'd have like just crippling anxiety, just thinking about what could I possibly have done last night. I don't remember any of it, and debriefing with my friends and always being scared to talk to them and hear from them about what I might have done the night before. And um, it was a constant thing. It was like I'd wake up Sunday morning and I'd be like, I can't do this anymore. Like I'm not willing to quit, but I also just cannot black out anymore. And then, the Tuesday would come and the same exact thing would happen. And then the next morning it'd be the same thing. And then Thursday would come and the same exact thing would happen. And I'd wake up and I'd be crippled the next day, unable to get out of bed, unable to move, unable to think. And so as that slowly progressed, I started isolating myself. And there's a lot more of the story in there, but really like the what it comes down to is I could no longer do the things that I was doing, but I also wasn't willing to stop. So I blamed everyone else around me. I was like, "Oh, you're a bad influence. You're a bad influence. Like, you're not a good guy. You're not a good friend. How do you not show up for me?" All these different things when the reality was it was me. And the way that I realized that it was me was because I started isolating and I started pushing everyone away. And while maybe I wasn't, worried about what I did the night before, I still was partaking in the exact same behaviors, doing the exact same things, having the exact same cognitive reasonings as to why I was doing it and all these different things. And no one else was around me. So who else could it have been? Right? And that isolation really, really dug deep. And, my friends weren't really reaching out to me anymore. And at first, I blamed them. I was like, "Oh, again, you guys are horrible friends and all this stuff." But as it went on, I realized, like, wow, I was in my senior year of college at this time. And um, not just was I in my senior year of college, but all of my friends were too. They were trying to enjoy their last year being at school. And here I was, the problem friend, the friend that everyone always had to take care of and always had to worry about, finally, like, is no longer coming out with us, right? And I realized, like, wow, I don't blame them at all for not wanting to take care of me anymore. That was their job for the last 3 years. Now they finally have a break and they could go out and have a good time. And that hurt, right? Of course it hurt and it was sad and all these different things, but it led me deeper into my isolation. And that was kind of the wake up call for me was like I switched drugs all the time. I went from weed to alcohol, from alcohol to Xanax, from Xanax to Coke. And then at the very end, I was isolated in my room doing Coke, which, a lot of people think is a party drug. And for me, it was like how I relaxed.
Hmm.
And for 6 months, I was doing this alone on my couch in my room, not seeing anyone, barely leaving my room. And that was when I realized, like, okay, there might be a problem. Um, and it's funny because that's what made me realize that there was a problem when the reality is there was a problem so far before that so many people outside of myself saw, and I just didn't see it.
Yeah.
It took me really being in absolute misery and absolute pain and basically, I was like screaming out for help to like my family and to my dad and I didn't even know that that's what I needed was the help, but the way that I was acting was like, "Please help me, please look at me, please see that I cannot do this anymore." And finally it led to me getting help, which eventually led to me being willing to take the next step, which was for me to go to rehab and get clean. And I say that, but it really wasn't that simple, obviously, as I'm sure you know. And what really changed everything for me was hearing someone else's story. I grew up in a very um like hush hush town. No one talked about their problems. Everyone, all the families seemed to have it all together, and every family had their own stuff, but no one in the public knew about it. And so with the dysfunction in my own family, I thought that we were always so different from everyone else, right? Because everyone else was so perfect and they were all living amazing
Hmm.
lives, all these different things. And here my family was doing these things, and here was me feeling the way that I was feeling with anxiety and depression and mental health problems, and I thought I was so alone. I thought I was the only person that was going through this, and that continued for 8 years almost. And when it finally got to, in my isolation and stuff, I thought I was the only person in the world that was doing what I was doing. Like genuinely, I thought I was the only person that was isolated in their room doing drugs and, wanting to die and not wanting to live the life that I was living. And it's insane because the reality is so many people out there are struggling with this. And it wasn't until I met a fellow alcoholic, a fellow drug addict who had been sober for almost 6 years at the time that I met him, that he shared with me his story, and I realized I wasn't alone. And I realized that recovery was possible. And so then that's kind of the full circle moment for me of like, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing today, to help spread awareness, to help other people recognize that they're not alone in going through this, to help them recognize that change is possible, right? Because I was at a place in my life where I didn't see any way out. It was just an absolute pitch black hole, no light at the end of the tunnel. And yet here I am, almost 2 years later, living a life beyond my wildest dreams. And it was all thanks to this guy and going to treatment and getting the willingness and putting in the work.
That's beautiful, man. I think my second or third last guest was it used to be he was a police officer and like 16-year career, and because of his addiction, he lost everything, his pension, and now he's given like talks to like guys at the Salvation Army that went through the exact same thing he did, and he never saw himself doing that. I post a lot. Some people say sometimes too much, but I don't worry with those people because every time you post something or share your story, there's a chance that someone new sees it that's you that's going through that shit. And they're like, oh, wow, okay. I am not the only one. And it sounds so cliche and lame, but I I had an episode here with a guy and it only had like 29 views or something. I don't care about numbers. I like to look at them every now and then. It's kind of fun just to see what you're doing.
Mhm.
But one of my lowest episodes, this guy reached out to me and I put him in contact with the guest that was on. He was a pro boxer that went to Las Vegas, of all places, for rehab. Two things you don't really put together in the same sentence: Vegas, rehab. But now he's got his shit together, and these guys are talking. Like, to me, that one connection right there is worth more than if that episode had 50,000 plays. And that's how, like, just us, just talking. Um, I gotta ask you though, when you first quit, and then those first few months, did you find you lost a lot of friends? I had people just bail on me left, right, center.
So it's interesting because when I went into treatment, I wouldn't say that I didn't have many friends, but I didn't have really anyone that I was talking to or in close contact with. Like I had pushed almost everyone in my life away. And the reality was, I hear from a lot of people, you need to change your friends and the people that you hang out with and all those things. And for me, a lot of my use was alone. I was the problematic drinker. I was the problematic drug user. The people that I was surrounding myself with weren't actually that way at all. So when I got out of treatment, I had the most beautiful thing happen where I was able to rekindle relationships with all of the people that I'd pushed away. All these people had graduated school and had gone on to live their lives and are working full-time jobs and all this stuff. And I was able to reach out to a lot of them and make amends to them. And we're not best friends today, but we have a relationship where I talk to them every once in a while and we chat. And, it's also pretty cool because a lot of the relationships that I have also turned into like, wow, this guy gets it. I could actually go to him and talk to him about my feelings, whereas a lot of my relationships before were very surface level.
Hmm.
So I learned how to be vulnerable when I was in treatment, and I bring that with me wherever I go. And one thing that I've learned most is that vulnerability breeds vulnerability. So by me being vulnerable, by me sharing my story, by me, you know, getting rid of the shame and the guilt that comes with being a drug addict and being an alcoholic and truly overcoming all that, it really makes other people feel comfortable and feel safe to come and open up to you about those things.
Man, it's like we're on the same plane, just different sections. All the stuff you're like, I used to go in my room alone on nights when I wasn't drinking and eat like six hamburgers and a poutine. So I was still in like I was still using, but it was just horrible food every day of the week right after work because I used to live across the street from a Dairy Queen and they had like four for $6 or some crazy deal back then. But I used to go and get like two of those and just sit in my room with the TV or PlayStation and just eat and eat and eat. When I wasn't drinking, I was eating, and that's how I blew up to almost 400 pounds. So it's kind of very similar, but it's just, um, what's the biggest difference you see with what people expect recovery to look like versus what you went through?
I would say like for me, for the law, and this might not answer the question directly, but it'll come around. But for me at the beginning, before I got sober, like when I was in the pre-contemplation stage and the contemplation stage of like wanting to get better and recognizing that I had a problem, I wasn't actually willing to put in any work. I wanted a miracle to happen. I would show up to therapy and I would talk to people, sure, but I wouldn't actually take any of the suggestions and I wouldn't actually do anything. And that's why, for me, it seemed impossible because nothing would ever change. You know, um, then one day I spoke with my therapist and she said something to me that changed everything for me. And I was telling her, and this was while I was in active addiction. I was telling her that I don't see myself ever being happy. Like in life, I don't see myself ever being happy. So what's the point? What's
Hmm.
the point of putting in the work? What's the point? What would be the point of going to rehab? What would be the point of getting sober if I'm never going to be happy? Like up to this point, I'd been miserable my whole life since way before I started using, like using wasn't the reason that I was miserable. Using was my solution to being miserable. And so I never thought that I'd be happy. And she looked at me and she said, even some of the most successful people in the world, even some of the people that live the best, quote unquote, best lives, they're not happy all the time. Some of them aren't even happy. Um, it's about finding purpose in life. And I think that was a huge misconception for me, right? I thought that the whole point of life was to be happy. And the reality is that happiness is just an emotion. And emotions come and go the same way that sadness comes and goes.
Hmm.
And if we expect ourselves to always be happy, then we're going to be setting ourselves up for failure because, sure, like I might be happy later today and it might last an hour, but as soon as that happiness goes away or fades away, then I'm going to be disappointed because I'm going to be like, oh, I'm not happy. What's the point? All this stuff. When in reality is, I've realized that that's not the point to my life anymore. And I'm not happy all the time. And there are a lot of moments of sadness and anger still does come up. And, all these what people coin as negative emotions, reality is they're just emotions. They're just signals telling us what we need. And I always had this conception that, okay, I'm going to get sober, and the only reason that I would ever do that is to live a happy life. But I don't have that anymore. And now I just live life. And it even goes back to what we were saying before, is like, what is fun? What does a fun weekend look like? Well, in the past, it looked like chaos. It looked like excitement, all that stuff. Today, it looks like calm and peace
Hmm.
and surrounding myself with people that fill me up with energy rather than drain my energy, and doing things that I enjoy doing. But what I enjoy doing is very different than what it used to be. Like this is something that I enjoy doing. Going for a walk with a friend and having a deep conversation is something that I enjoy doing. Going to the gym is something that I enjoy doing. Am I over the moon happy when I'm at the gym? Absolutely not. Sometimes I'm like, why am I still here? Why am I doing this? Like, why am I torturing myself this? But that's what makes me feel good, and that's why I get up every morning. And the way that she explained it to me was so simple. It was because at the time I had no reason to live. I wasn't doing anything. Was contributing nothing to society. I was isolated in my room. And she said, "Why don't you get out of bed and go walk down the street? And if someone's trying to get into a door or something, open the door for them." And that could be your reason for getting out of bed. That could
Hmm.
be your purpose for being in this world. And it starts small, right? And that's grown to now me having this purpose of sharing my story, of sharing what it was like for me, of sharing what it's like for me now, and of, destigmatizing addiction and mental health, and helping others recognize that they're not alone. And again, I'm not always happy. I would say that I'm even probably not quote unquote happy most of the time, but I am living a life that has a lot of meaning and that helps me get out of bed in the morning. And I get to connect with other people, which is so powerful, something that I missed out on for 6 straight months.
You know what I love, man? That everyone talks about how evil X and how evil Twitter is and how evil social media is, but there's some people I've met and they're in like the last whatever years I've been on there that if I post something weird or like I'll have strangers reach out to me and just say, "Hey, are you okay?" Like people that have followed my story and follow my updates. And I don't know if it's just there's some people on there that I'm closer with than people I know in real life because they get it, right? They've been there. They've been through this shit and they know the little signs. And I know you had posted yesterday about someone that you interacted with that just said, "Hey, how was your day?" And it was so strange to hear that from someone that you don't even know. So, I mean, everyone talks about how horrible it is, but what's your take on how good it can be sometimes?
Yeah, I mean, I'm laughing because I always had the worst relationship to social media. I haven't been on Instagram in over a year because it's just not healthy for me. And Snapchat, especially, like I never used Snapchat for good reasons ever. Like if I was ever on that app, it was always for negative reasons, and I haven't really been on it since I've been sober because of my values and because of my intentions. And I think intentions is the biggest thing because it really depends what we intend to use it for. One of my biggest things about going on X is being authentic and being honest and being myself. There's this talk about the algorithm and blowing up and getting popular and getting follows and monetizing and all these different things. And you know what? Like, I probably could gain a bigger following if I posted a certain way or if I used certain words or if I
Hmm.
framed it certain ways. And I don't want to be driven by that because one of the biggest things in my sobriety is finding my authentic self. In my active addiction, I put on so many masks. I was people pleasing. I wanted other people to like me. I wanted to fit into society's norms. I wanted to be this person that I wasn't. And today I get to practice the opposite of that, which is being authentic. And what I've found through X is that authenticity attracts other people who are authentic.
Hmm.
The same way that you reached out to me, the same way that the guy that I posted about yesterday, like we have FaceTimed and we've called and we text on the side, and we have this, what it is a relationship. It's a connection. And while it's not an in-person connection and I've never met him in person, we have these deep conversations that we bring out in each other. And that comes from the intention behind why I'm using the app. I'm not using the app to gain 1 million followers or to boost my ego or to feel good about myself or any of these things. It's to spread a message. But in spreading that message, also keeping myself and being myself. And sometimes that's difficult because social media kind of breeds the opposite of that oftentimes, but it's about sticking to my values and staying within those closed lines because sometimes I might veer from it. Sometimes I might get the urge to post something that's not entirely myself or the want to boost my ego or all those things, right? It's not a perfect practice, but it's about coming back and centering ourselves within those values. And in doing that, in my experience, X is like one of the best things that I do for myself. It's cathartic, it's therapeutic, it's all these different things that I find now in writing and sharing my story and connecting with other people.
We're so similar, man. That's like every now and then I'll just go in and look at because they have those metrics you got to meet or something, and I'm like 4.5 million away. Like I don't care. I know I'm never gonna make money off Twitter. I don't care. Um, but you can spot those people so easily asking these same questions every day. You're just like, hey, they'll find the most viral kind of questions to ask, and like there's no name you can tell me that ends in an A and start like all this garbage. And it's funny, hey, I just ignore them and move on. But like you and I are very similar there. Like I just post my story a lot just to inspire other people. And it's all from in 2010, I was on a balcony in downtown Calgary, 9 pitchers of beer in at like 1:30 in the morning, just staring down at the ground. I was on the 14th floor. And I didn't really think I was gonna leap off the thing, but I thought, you know what, hey, I'm gonna give a shit and let me leap off.
One of these days you're gonna realize
And then I
you
posted that
needed
on,
me.
on X,
You
and
finally see
like
you're
a last
building
week ago, I
up
had
a
on my
great
Twitter
big wall of
me as on
lies,
Vegas.
oh, and you
And
can't
I
go
captioned it like,
free.
I've never
The
posted about this
secret
moment
that you keep will be the end of you. I
incident where
can't
I took
wait
sweatshirt
all the
greatest
day when you
photos
tell the
that I've ever
truth.
taken.
You're crawling on my back to get
And
your
it's like
fame.
someone
Time
said,
is short. It's gonna
or
end
someone
real soon.
don't
It's
see
my
anything
way.
wrong. And it's like
Set
Rockstar
my
X
way.
always comes out with
Oh
something like that.
yeah, yeah. Standing on the
Very
edge of
similar
the
to the
ledge.
lifestyle
I
you
need to
present there.
break free from here. Free from the chains you put on me. Yeah. You're
And for
nothing
you,
without me.
so one of my fun things to do is look
Can't
back at
take
August Day
another day like today. You
and so
wear
many
me
nights I'll
down,
remember.
push me
And some of
around.
the shit I've seen out
Too
there, I've actually
many
never seen
marks
myself
on
do.
my back from you.
Because
Oh,
there's
I
videos
can't
and
take the
stuff. And
pain. I
if you
got to
ever look
get
back at those,
away.
you can see
Yeah.
how
The
far you've
secret
come.
that you keep will be the
It's
end of
funny.
you. I can't
A lot of the
wait for
pictures
the day
that
when you
I
tell the
met my family with
truth.
as a kid, I
Starting
was messed
today,
up and I was
starting
on drugs or on
today, I'm
alcohol and
in
stuff.
my
And so
way.
whenever I go
Oh
home,
yeah.
my dad has this framed beautiful picture of me, right? And every picture that comes up, there's I'm messed up. And I tell him all the time, like, you didn't tell me a few years ago that I have other pictures of myself. And I use that picture as inspiration because, yeah, I think back to it all the time. And sometimes, especially at the beginning, I used to get very unsure because I was so
Standing
confused about
on, standing on, standing on,
you know,
standing on, standing
belonging
on,
and
yeah.
those
Standing
ideas of
on,
that.
standing, standing on,
When I was
standing
a kid,
on, standing on,
I wasn't getting well and I wasn't getting the help that I needed and I wasn't believing in myself to help
hey,
others. And so
I'm
I
free
used to do
from
all these things
here,
that didn't make
free
me
from
happy.
the chain you
And
put on
there was
me.
life that I
Say
was
I'm
living
nothing
I
without
didn't see myself in the way that I actually am. And I wouldn't say that this is justifiable. It was like the way that I was acting as a kid that there was heavy drugs in. I heard a lot of music and I was celebrating with a lot of young people and young men, you know, who were doing stupid things and just like cocaine and booze and at the time. And so I didn't take responsibility for it. And that's really what it comes down to is responsibility. You know, I would always blame other people or blame my life circumstances or blame the fact that I was messed up or all those things. And the reality was is no, that's mine to own. But at the same time, two things can be true that while that's my responsibility, I was also in a very, very dark place where I was very, very unhealthy and I did things to other people, I did things to myself that weren't me, that I regret, that, you know, I would never do today. And I did the things that I needed to do, and I was surrounded by the most amazing people and family and support. And, you know, I went to rehab and I met other people in the sobriety community and all this stuff that I was able to then come out of it. And now I get to live this life where it's really a living amends. I get to not participate in the same old behaviors that I used to participate in, and I get to move forward with my life. And that doesn't mean forget about the things that I did, but it means act in a different way and really stay true to my values and to the person that I am and the person that I want to be and the person that I want other people to see me as. And that doesn't mean, act in a certain way so that other people like me. It means act in a certain way that I feel comfortable with. That I could wake up in the morning or I can go to bed at night and I could feel okay with the way that I acted. And don't get me wrong, like I still hurt other people today. It's just when it happens, I get to make amends for it right away. I don't
Mhm.
get to blame other people or whatever. And I'm not a perfect person, and my sobriety isn't perfect, and my recovery isn't perfect, and I don't practice spirituality perfectly. And, I'm not a saint, but the reality is that I could take responsibility today, and I have a lot of awareness to the point where if I do hurt someone else, most of the time it's unintended. But even still, if it's unintended, it doesn't matter. I still hurt the other person, and I get to reach out to them and own up to it and write it and do something differently.
Beautiful. Well, I got two more questions for you, and then we'll call it a show. Um, I end all my episodes with this stupid question at the end, but before I do that, if someone's out there watching this right now that's struggling or they're scared to quit or they've tried and failed before, what would you say to them right now?
Yeah, I would say that I was where you were. I was in a place where I didn't see a life without alcohol, without drugs. I didn't really even see myself living past 25. Um, I thought I was so alone. And the reality is that you're not alone. There's so many people out there, whether it's me or you or so many people that have lived a similar story to you, even if you think it's impossible, even if you think there's no way anyone else could have possibly been through this, there are other people in the world that have lived, if not the same, then similar, that have gone through it and have come out the other side of it. And, if I could take one thing away from my early days, from when I was still in active addiction, it's finding someone that has been through what I went through to show me how they got out of it and how they got to the other side of it because it is possible. And even if, there's zero hope and zero urge to want to do these things, I'm here to tell you that it's worth it and that we do come out on the other side and we do recover and life is one of the most beautiful things ever. And this is coming from someone that wanted to die every single day, that hated life, that wanted no part of being alive and, wouldn't want to get out of bed. And it's truly unbelievable that I could even stand here and say this, but that's the reality of the life that I live today. And it's truly beyond my wildest dreams.
Wow. And parts like I almost feel like I'm talking to myself, like interviewing myself here, like how similar our stories are in our past.
And that's a perfect testament to the fact that there's so many people out there that live similar lives that do these things that like think they're so alone. And the reality
Mhm.
is that I come across people every day that I hear my story and their story. And I could relate and resonate. And we talk about it and even sometimes laugh about it because of how far we've come from there.
Wow. Just amazing, man. I'm so glad you came on with me in here and shared your story with us. But speaking of laughs, my final question to you, a uh, a 100-meter pigeon carrying contest. How many pigeons could you fit in your arms and still have left in your arms at the end of a 100-meter race?
I have no idea. Um, 10 maybe?
10? Okay, that'll put you in like the top 10% right there.
Oh yeah? Is this like a thing that actually goes down? Is this a contest that happens?
I asked this every episode, and the lowest was 0. Was Leslie Horton from Global News Calgary, who has a fear of pigeons and Canada geese. She wouldn't even touch the question.
Okay.
And my last episode, I think my new highest answer was 250, and that guy had plans. There was strategy involved.
Okay.
And it's also my little quiz I give people that say, "Hey, I've watched all your episodes every minute." I'm like, "Oh, what'd you think of that last question?" And they're like, "Uh, uh." But I've also had guests come on that have been completely prepared for it. It's because they did watch one full episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I've had some pretty dark and heavy episodes on here, and that's just how I just end all my shows with something stupid and just
I like it.
it's kind of like when I feel a panic attack or anxiety coming on, I fire on music or just scroll on TikTok for something stupid, and then I forget what I was even upset about. So it's
Yeah.
just, but yeah, so if people want to find you, connect with your story, I'll put all your whatever links you want in the description there. But have you ever thought of, because I know you do a lot of journaling, you ever thought of writing a book about your journey?
Yes, I would love to. And I started a blog in January, where I share my story. I share like once a week, I share just a different story from either as my active addiction or something that, I've experienced in recovery. And it's definitely one of my goals one day is to write a book.
Beautiful. That sounds like a good follow-up episode to me.
Yeah.
But all right, everybody, don't forget to like, subscribe, all that crap my daughter tells me to say. But just say one nice thing to one person every day of this year, and you can change someone's life with something so simple.
For sure.
Have a great day, everyone. Go give Jason a follow and check out everything I put down there.
Thanks, Dave.
All right.